I didn't hate it. I think the Netflix live-action Cowboy Bebop, if you ignore the anime Cowboy Bebop, is a good show. It's not great, it's just good. I enjoyed it. There are bits that I absolutely hated. There were bits that I enjoyed, and there are bits that were inoffensive. Overall, a positive outcome. Is it a good adaptation? I think on par with Alita. Because Alita was pretty good, but I feel like Alita tried to fit too much in, and as a result that dragged it down a bit. It was still really fun, it was still really good. And I don't mind the CG big eyes, that worked for me. This, however, they were quite selective in what they chose to adapt, having only the 10 episodes, compared to what's the original series, 26? It's like they knew which stories they could do with their budget. But the ones they chose to do, Jet and his partner, that story, a lot of these worked. I think even Poirot LeFou, doing his story, it wasn't quite as balloon-shaped as I would have liked, and his floating was a lot slower than the crazy erraticness of the original. But it worked. It still worked. That was almost a more realistic take on it. It's like, Vincent D'Onofrio Kingpin versus Spider-Verse Kingpin. That has to be a little more realistic for live action. Episode 1, Cowboy Gospel, is pretty much dead on for episode 1 of the original with the whole Red Eye plot, except they have Faye introduced and disappears until she shows up later in the series. But having her established and she's on the posters, everyone knows Faye Valentine, so having her show up in episode 1 in a cameo-esque role. She's there for 2-3 scenes, I think. Good. I enjoyed that and don't mind that change. And then having the Syndicate guys at the end be, but you're dead! They do a lot more with Syndicate stuff, I feel, because sort of throughout the original series, aside, I haven't watched the original one in a wee while, but off the top of my head, other than Jupiter Jazz and the finale, the Syndicate is kind of a background element. It's referenced, a lot of the stories and characters and stuff have a connection to it. You see Vicious, and Julia, and the Syndicate. That's sort of the B story that is happening throughout the entire show. And the guy playing Vicious sounds... In episode 1, it works. That is a good translation of Vicious from the anime. Everything after episode 1 is a different character. They do too much to humanize him. The relationship with his dad is fleshed out more. His relationship with Julia is fleshed out a lot more. I really like the flashback episode for this show. Alright, that episode, that flashback is not canon at all to the anime. But just for this show, that worked. I really liked that flashback episode. Episode 3, I imagine it's going to have a mixed response with what they did with Hakeem. I kind of liked it. It's funny what they did with like him and the dogs and everything at the end. It works. The opening of the show, the opening casino set piece, is 100% inspired by the opening of the movie, and there are quite a few elements that feel like they're lifting from the movie as well as the show, which I like. So taking that all, taking its entire package as what they're adapting for the live-action show works. I'm glad they do. Although, the very end of the final episode does seem like they're setting up for a direct adaptation of the movie, which I want to see, but I don't, and we'll get into that with how they end this show. Episode 4, I like the eco-terrorists story in this one more than in the anime. Because in the anime I remember, so these were characters, this is what they wanted. Yeah, that makes sense. This one is sort of ingrained in my head for how gory they made that transformation of that woman into a tree. Wow. I mean, well, this show is... what's it? It's a 15. It's a UK 15. Same level as the first Deadpool, in terms of your swearing and your sex and all that. The blood and violence. I really liked episode 4. That was good. With episode 5, with now Faye properly on the team, her and Spike just sitting there talking about who they're going to go after, and then Faye's sort of past jobs and stuff. That was really fun. That felt right out the original to me. And then Jet's story with his partner, tracking down the guy who shot up his arm and everything, who's just been released from prison. Good. I remember in the original, it didn't click for me that Jet's partner was crooked. But in this one, it felt a little more obvious that was the way it was going, because I'm sure if I go back and watch the original, it'll be obvious as well. So I'm curious if for anyone who's watching the live action one first, big mistake, please watch the original. I'm sure if you're watching this channel, you've seen the original Cowboy Bebop. I'd be curious if people worked that out, if that's just something that was more obvious in live action. Yeah, who's the crooked cop? Probably the one we've spent the most time developing, being Jet's partner. Yeah. Binary two-step, I really liked. I've seen, I think it was like Animac and Nux and Briggs on Rant Cafe were saying the first 5 episodes are good and the last 5 go downhill. I see where that's coming from, because the first 5 feel pretty faithful to the original, and then the last 5 are Netflix going, okay, now we're going to do our own thing, which is good. I'm glad they did, instead of trying to do a full-on shot-for-shot remake. But like Binary Two-Step was really fun for Spike being put through this process to like try and get over Julia, and he just can't. That was really good, and that also gives us our first scene on Earth. Exterior and everything, destroyed buildings, and if you don't, that's handled well as well. The whole allusions to Earth, everyone evacuating Earth, rich people taking their dogs instead of poor people. That's handled really well. Again, no complaint on that. Episode 7, Galileo Hustle, or Netflix taking this and doing their own thing, having Whitney not be a guy who was Faye's love interest when she woke up, having Whitney be Faye's mother, but it's still the same story. Like, she came out of the cryo sleep, and then they lied about this and tried to get money and everything. It's roughly the same, and it does lead through some fun dynamics and fun scenes. I'm glad that I think they very easily could have had Spike and Jet not realize until later in the episode, but they caught on pretty quickly that there was something off there. I'm glad for that. Episode 8, Sad Clown A Go-Go, the Poirot episode, for this smaller, more condensed and different telling of the story. Just a change from cats to dogs with him, so that Ein can be involved. Good. I like that. I think when that started, I thought, okay, so that's what it'll be. We'll see Ein at the end rather than like a robot cat, but still it's a robot dog. And have Ein be sent away there. A little bit like in the original, Ein and Ed leave a few episodes in advance of the story getting properly dark. And then it's the flashback episode, which I've said I like. It's very different, but it's not bad. It is very different from the anime in tone and story and character, I suppose, but it's good. I liked it. And then episode 10, Supernova Symphony, being the sort of Jupiter Jazz adaptation. It's maybe the worst episode. I like with the more human, emotional, flawed, scared, angry version of Vicious. I like him once they get to the church. His monologue with Spike there, like, I mourned you. I even gave you room in my family's crypt and everything. And now he's just so angry at that. And now I'm going to put you in that box. That sort of stuff I liked. The ending feels like it was more interested in pulling the rug out from under the anime fans than being good. So they have, because this is the finale, and I don't think there was much talk of a second season or anything, you were expected to go, okay, and here we'll get our mishmash of the midpoint in the finale. We'll have Julia die, or we'll have Spike die, let's see what we do. And that is not the case at all. I was expecting, once Julia sort of did that turnaround of, why didn't you come back for me? And sort of plays with the damsel in distress, womanist sort of trophy, motivation for the hero. They play with that, and I kind of liked it up until Julia being set up as the villain for the next season and leading the syndicate. I didn't mind her not wanting out of this life, sort of. Other than vicious, she enjoys the lavish luxury of it and all. That's an interesting idea. It didn't feel too believable from what we'd seen of her thus far, other than her wanting them to double-cross Vicious in the coup d'etat. Other than that, that felt wildly out of character. And then I'll talk about the credits ending. That'll be the last thing I cover. But the performances, the actors, the characters. John Cho as Spike, great. John Cho does good in this show. I feel like he looks a little too old to be Spike. His eyes sort of look a wee bit too tired. But then if you look at the original, Spike is sort of portrayed like that quite a lot, actually. And again, the whole one eye see in the future, one eye see in the past. He's been through a lot. So him looking kind of tired at this point in the main series, that works. That works for me, I think. Mustafa as Jet. I've only seen him in Luke Cage before, so this was a drastic change from his character in that, and I think he was pitch perfect. My only complaint with him is that they made sort of his core motivation be, this is my daughter. I'm doing everything for my daughter. My daughter is really important to me. My daughter. Which for this condensed, simplified story, I don't mind, because you need things to be a little bit more bare bones for that, and it leads to some great comedy and pretty emotional scenes and stuff. I've him going to the rehearsal via this hologram tech that they've got in this show. That was really good. Every time it cuts back to Spike fighting out the window to protect him while he's doing this. That was good. I really like him in this. The arm looks great. Mustafa was pretty darn perfect for this, honestly. I think if they were to do a direct shot-for-shot recreation of the original, cast Mustafa again as Jet, because he, again, pretty darn spot-on, perfect casting. And then Daniela as Faye. The internet really went hard on her, didn't they? I don't mind. The change in outfit isn't that bad. Okay? Yes, sort of her femininity and sort of sex appeal was a pretty key part of the original, and as I said, this is kind of a different story that is very heavily inspired, and they take plots and everything from it. But they change Vicious and Julia quite a bit. But for the characters they're changing up Faye a bit is fine to me. She still has roughly the same backstory, still is trying to do the same thing. At the end, she's going off to find her childhood home, which I was expecting to see in that finale, her coming to just the rubble of it and lying in it and everything, like in the original. But no, they're leaving that as something for season 2 or the movie or whatever they're gonna do. So that'll be interesting. Where they're gonna go with that, because that is sort of where her story ends, or where that plot line ends in the original. So if they're doing more, I don't know what they're gonna do with her. They'll have to do more pretty different stuff. I would have liked, again on the outfit, had she worn a anime accurate outfit version of it at some point. Just as a little thing for the fans and everything. That would have been fun. But her wearing the low-cut dress and everything, they still play around with the sex appeal and everything. And her sexuality a bit as well, which is funny in that first episode with the mechanic, but then her sort of flipping through the magazine, they go a little too long on that joke, I think. Because then it's on to Whitney and my backstory and trying to find my past. Which is a wee thing. I wish they'd done more of a joke with no one knowing what a VHS tape is, instead of the two of them had no idea what it was, and then we go back to the others and the guys are like, oh yeah, it goes on this, there you go. VHS. Which is a wee thing that I just remembered. Whitney and Minx, Iron Minx, roleplay chasing each other down thing. That was really fun. A lot of the stuff in this is good. There were bits of it that are weak or changed, not necessarily for the better. But all in all, I enjoyed this show. Is it the best live-action anime adaptation? Probably not. But it's a good one, which I think we're getting to the point where we're going to get more good than bad anime adaptations, because there have been so many bad ones at this point that for the most part, studios and companies seem to know what not to do. Don't want this to be too long, so about that ending. Julia taking over the Syndicate, I wish felt more... I wish she had more reason for doing it, because it, again, felt a little out of nowhere, a little out of character from what we'd seen of her in the show. Vicious being chained up in this cellar, it's like, you might as well have killed him in that case. And it seems she's pretty dispassionate to that anyway, with just seemingly going to go play Russian roulette with him every day. It means that, you know, he's going to get out, he's going to come back, otherwise you should have just killed him for the sake of the story. There'd be no point keeping him around if he's not going to come back in some meaningful way. Jet, with Kimmy now having been in danger as a result of Spike's history with Vicious and the Syndicate and everything, still helping Spike and everything, knowing he's like, you're a good guy, but you've done stuff that at present I cannot forgive you for, and for the sake of my family and my daughter and everything, stay away from me. Like saying that I'll kill you next time I see you or whatever, next time you step foot on the ship. A little extreme, but he's angry, he's injured and everything. It works. Which, as a little aside, again, I haven't watched the original in a wee while, but I always assumed that Jet knew Spike was with the Syndicate in some capacity. Which is why he's sort of so stoically upset about it in the finale when Spike goes and leaves them. He's like, I'm telling you not to. And I know you've gotta. And he's sort of just more angry about it in that, because it always felt to me that Jet in the original knew already. I was just sort of keeping an eye on Spike, but choosing to sort of ignore that almost. So having that be a more prominent angle in this one of Spike not telling him was a change, and I will admit I don't hate that change. Not a big fan of it, but I don't hate it. Again, if that is a change, that just might be my memory. Faye, as I said, going off to find her house, or her old house, is, again, very much something that happens at the end. So if they're doing more, I don't know what they're going to do with her. Again, I've heard of conflicting rumors as to whether they've cancelled Season 2, or if there's any plans to do a Season 2 or the movie or whatever. I'd still like to see more. The Data Dog. Ein doesn't do too much in this because Ein really it's sort of Ed and Ein in the original. Once Ed shows up, because prior to that it's like, it's just the dog on the ship. Ein, he's cute, we love him. But then you get the relationship between the two of them. But here, they leave Ein in the Poirot episode, and then he shows up right at the end with Ed. And I'm going to preface this by saying Ed is most likely my favourite character from the Bebop in the original. Wow, was Ed cringy in this? I don't know if it's just... I don't know what went wrong. I think that's why this is annoying me so much. It's the over-the-top wackiness of Edward. Yes, but why did it not work? Is it just because that insane cartooniness works in a cartoon, it works in animation, and it's just really weird in live action? Maybe that's kind of what I'm chalking this up to. But it's things like they shoot with like a obnoxious wide-angle lens from most of the shots, which works because it Spike's POV. It works for the more over-the-topness of it, but it doesn't. It doesn't for some reason. It's like that. I feel like if I was going to do this, I would have shot at least initially with a wide-angle lens for getting in Spike's face. And I can't say that the actress is doing a bad job, because again, it feels pretty. Maybe it's down to like the direction or something. I don't know. But Edward was really bad. I think maybe it was a good call to leave off on introducing them until right at the end, because if that was going to be Edward throughout the entire series, man, would that have dragged the show down quite a few steps in quality. I hope if they do more that they can work this out, because again, I really like Ed in the original, and this felt really off. And again, it's annoying because I don't know how I'd fix it. So I can't even be too harsh in critiquing it, because I can't go, this is what you did wrong. I can just say, it felt wrong. It was cringy, it was embarrassing almost. And I don't know how they can make it work, other than just watch the original, because the original is better. But setting up, Ed is like, this guy doing spooky stuff, Halloween, pumpkins, and hinting at an adaptation of the movie. Would be interesting. From where this left off, I'd like to see them at least do the movie, or some variation upon that plot that ends with them all together on the Bebop, off to have more adventures. That's the sort of note I could see this ending on. That's the sort of note I expected this to end on, actually, but it ended on a bit more of a downer. Which is very fitting for the ending of Cowboy Bebop. I hope they do more. Again, I've heard rumors that because this had quite a negative response, like the show itself, they cancelled season 2, which feels very unlike Netflix. So yeah, that's kind of my word vomit thoughts on the Netflix Cowboy Bebop. Let me know what you guys thought, because I'm still trying to get my thoughts together on this. I liked it, I didn't love it, definitely didn't hate it, but it had really great moments and really bad ones, so... Until next time, I've been Jack of all trades. See ya, Space Cowboys!